Yo, people, it's Cole from RetroReverbRecords. I'm here with another interview, and I am super stoked today. I mean, it's taken me about, I don't know, almost 3 months to get this interview going. But today I am here with the lovely Megan McDuffie. Hello, Megan. How are you today?
Hey, Cole. It's awesome to be here. I am good. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely excellent. And like I said, really pleased to have you, on the interview. I know that we set this up, and then I cancelled, then you cancelled. Blah blah blah. It's a difficult thing, but really pleased to have you on the show today. And one of many super synthwave artists that we've had on, and hopefully to come in the future as well. Okay, Megan, let's go straight into it. You, as far as I'm aware, you've been around in the scene since when RetroReverbRecords started. You were involved in, you were kind enough to collaborate with Even Future, and we had a track on our first charity album, which was called RetroReverbRecords Volume 1. And I'm just trying to bloody remember the name of the song because it's disappeared. Stella Night, there we go, Stella Night.
That's right.
you put the vocals on Stella Night for Even Future, and that featured on my first track. So from the get-go, I knew of who you were, and you obviously were kind enough to help us out. And in all honesty, that was one of the stepping stones of us becoming a record label in the scene. So thank you very much for that.
Cool, I'm glad.
Okay, now a really big question, but for anyone out there who hasn't heard of Megan McDuffie, right, which would be weird, but if they haven't, how would you describe your sound?
Okay, so that's sort of a divergent question with two separate answers. I would say that for my professional, well, it's all professional, but for my video game stuff, I'd say it's more along the lines of dark and gritty and sort of score oriented more so. And then the other half is also dark and moody, electropop, synth pop, inspired by artists like Depeche Mode and Massive Attack. Yeah, I just say overall think super dark and super sparkly. If you combine those two things.
if I've understood you correctly, you're kind of saying you've almost got two distinct sounds. So you've got like a sort of 8-bit game sound, which we could talk about. Your last release was Atari Recharged, correct?
Yes, that's the most recent game soundtrack. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's I think about 18 tracks on there. And that really is kind of like, back to the 80s. I don't want to box anyone in, but kind of nerdy sort of game sounds, for the guys who like, Mario or whatever, from back in the day. That's the kind of sound. So can I just ask quickly, are you writing all of that music yourself?
Yes, I produce, record, mix all of my own work.
Okay, and do you have a passion for for old retro games? Are you a gamer?
I am a gamer. I didn't get into the video game thing until a little bit later on. I think most people who have sort of the retro nostalgia way about them fell in love with, Nintendo and Atari and sort of those super early consoles. But for me, I didn't come into it until the late 90s with the Nintendo 64. But ever since then, I have been hooked. And yes, I do game.
And I'm just making these questions up as I go along. How do you find so in terms of constructing a track, what would you say the biggest difference is between, because obviously you're a vocalist as well, so and your voice is a very distinctive sound that everyone recognizes whenever they listen to any one of your tracks. And your last vocal album, I think, was Inner Demons, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've got quite a huge contrast between those two albums. So in terms of making them, how would you describe the difference?
Well, for Atari, I mean, it's a pretty simple split there where I was given a brief, I was given the general, artwork and pacing and style of the game, and therefore that dictated what I was going to do for it. They hired me for my sound, which is great. But clearly it needed to be super upbeat, super, fun and energetic, and fit the sort of, frantic video game feel that you would expect from something like that. So on the other side, Inner Demons was my first full-length album that was not for a client, if you can believe it. It was like, finally I had an artist release, right?
Can I just say that Inner Demons is my favorite release of yours, by the way, just so everyone knows.
Thank you.
And if it wasn't for anyone else and it was an expression of yourself, then excellent, because it shone through.
Yeah, that was pretty much just like, I'm gonna release an album for me, for people to hear what I'm all about when I'm not beholden to somebody else's vision. So it became,
for me, like, I mean, we spoke just before the interview started, and like, to get to know each other and stuff. And I was saying about how, we'd had so much contact, but not actually met each other. But for me, the Inner Demons thing, I felt like encapsulated what I thought you were from the outside. So obviously I don't know you, so I don't want to make any sort of big pretentious claims about knowing you or anything like that. But it just kind of hit the right notes. I thought that's what I thought Megan McDuffie was, right? And so, and I'm going to review the album. I've already recorded. Actually, I haven't released it. Sorry, my bad. But I really felt. And I think that if anyone out there listening likes Megan McDuffie, I really feel like it does your voice justice, and I think the sound portrays an image of you that I think is a real one. So it's a really good album, and I'm absolutely delighted to be able to review it. Actually, so I know it's a bit late, but I will do it.
I'm glad that reflects me, because that's literally what it was. It's a musical extra version of my soul.
Okay, cool. Did you find it hard to make the game tracks with no vocals?
Not at all. It's kind of funny. I started off my life fully immersed in music, singing, acting, dancing, everything that kind of goes with that, piano lessons, etc. I sung in choirs all throughout college. When I started university, I went in as a vocal major, but the program was super, super classically focused. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be an opera singer. That is not my trajectory. No. So I leaned heavily into film scoring and composition and orchestration, because I decided I wanted to be a film composer. And I kind of went down that instrumental path. And then it took me a while to realize, like, oh, obviously I still can sing. Why aren't I doing both of those things? So I have a backgrounds in both, I guess, is the long answer to that question. Okay.
And I looked through your Bandcamp page. I can see 19 releases so far, I think, and they're varied releases. Some of them are albums, some of them are EPs, some of them are singles, some of them are game soundtracks. So I mean, 19 releases is quite a lot, quite an extensive amount of releases. Can you describe the journey you've taken from maybe when you first arrived until now? I mean, has there been a distinctive change or like a growth? Or is it just something that just kind of naturally progressed, organically grew as you went along?
Well, are you speaking to Synthwave specifically, or just musical career overall?
I think actually, I'm just interested in your growth. I mean, like, do you feel like that when you first came in, maybe you were a little bit raw, and that you've sharpened up and you've learned a little bit of you as you've gone along? And do you think you've learned to understand what works for you and what doesn't? I mean, I'm just talking, you know, what was the journey from when you first arrived? I mean, do you still like your first release? I mean, or do you listen to it and think, ooh,
Well, yes, there has been absolutely a journey. I was ready, you know, and hot to trot right out of the gate, right out of university, but clearly, and like most people, didn't really land the gigs that I wanted at the time. And since then, I have come a very long way with specifically my post-production skills. So mixing, mastering, learning how to make what is in my head sound as good as it does in my head. The composition stuff I feel like was kind of there, and I locked that in a while ago, but then the mixing journey has been one that has taken a little bit longer, but now I'm finally at a point where I can compete. You know, I have radio ready sounding stuff. Music supervisors want my stuff because it fits in really well with certain shows they're working on, or you know, I have sound design in Hollywood blockbuster trailers, stuff like that. So it's been about a 10-year journey for me, and there's still a lot I want to accomplish. So yeah, looking back on some of those first releases, I'm like, ooh, I could definitely mix that better now.
Do you still have other people look at your mix and masters, or are you at the stage where you're so confident now that you feel that, you know, you're at a level and maybe there's just a few tweaks here and there?
I do get feedback from people that I trust, who are on an equal footing with me, just to make sure I'm not crazy and I haven't listened to something to death in such a way that it's preventing me from making a good decision.
Yeah. It's just like you can't see the wood through the trees. Yeah, I know. Just randomly thought of this question. Is there anybody out there who you like really admire, like as a top mix and masterer, like who's in the scene? Somebody you think, you know, really hits the nail on the head every time that you hear them?
In the scene specifically, I think, well, Mitch Murder definitely has his own style and his own sound, and it's always so dialed in and clean. I feel like his mixes really work with his specific style.
Cool.
Another one is James Kent, Perturbator. I feel like his mixes always sound exactly like he intended as well.
Cool. All right, so listen, just wheeling back to you donated a track, or allowed us to use a track on the first charity album. You have agreed to allow us to use another track on our second album, so thank you very much again, which is Wicked Thing. So I'm just wondering, why did you feel that that was the track that you'd like to donate to this charity album, which is mental health? But I mean, is there anything about that track that sticks out for you?
I chose that track because it's from my most recent, you know, vocal album, Inner Demons, the one that was not for anyone else. I feel like that one, it kind of has a broad appeal, both stylistically and lyrically. And also just the fact that Inner Demons is it's kind of a journey with accepting one's innermost thoughts that might not necessarily feel good or feel right or be morally sound, but we just have to accept them and know that everybody has inner demons. So I feel like that definitely works with the mental health thing.
Absolutely. So do I. I think it's a lucky coincidence. I mean, obviously you planned that before I asked you to do the thing, but I mean,
yes.
the fact that it's called Inner Demons, and you know that's what people struggle with. I think it's very, very appropriate. So thank you very much. Okay. The last question I have, just on the personal note, is I feel like you've worked very hard to develop your image and obviously create a brand, which is the Mega McDuffie brand and stuff. How would you describe that image? What's the image that you because we all want people to take away an image. We've all got a brand, you know, we're all trying to kind of sell, you know, a certain thing, but and there's nothing wrong with that. But how would you describe that image to people who are fans of Megan McDuffie?
Well, first of all, I'd say polished, both in brand and sound quality. And then as far as like aesthetics or even the sound of work, I'd say dark and sparkly.
Dark and sparkly. Yeah, you've
like,
used it.
Like goth glam, like smash those two things together.
Yeah, you used sparkly before. Maybe like a dark crystal or something like that. Like really David Bowie, Labyrinth, dark and sparkly.
Dark and sparkly.
Like
yes,
yeah.
Labyrinth is my all-time favorite film. It's actually also the score and the soundtrack are one of the reasons I got into film scoring in the first place. So spot on.
oh, cool. I'm glad that I'm really pleased I managed to do that, because actually Labyrinth is one of my favorite films too. I really absolutely love it. And
awesome.
The soundtrack. All right, okay, let's move away from Megan McDuffie, the artist, the person. Thank you very much for all that insight. We really appreciate it. It was fantastic. I'm just going to ask you some really stupid questions now. So,
all right.
it is quick fire round. Okay, first question: do you prefer carbs or protein?
That is an interesting question.
Random, I know. I told you it'd be random.
Definitely carbs.
Carbs. Okay. So are you like a pasta girl? Do you're on your breads, your pastas, your potatoes, that kind of stuff?
Yep, absolutely. I could take bread over meat any day.
Okay. All right. Do you know what year Purple Rain was released?
I don't. I'm just going to be completely honest. I do not know off the top of my head.
That's absolutely fine. Right. I'm going to give you a little help. It was in the 80s. Do you want to take a wild stab?
I'm going to say 87.
Not bad. 84. 1984.
Okay.
All right. Another 80s boring general quiz. Right. How many Star Wars films were released in the 80s?
2.
Spot on, well done. Very good.
There's my nerd background coming in there.
Honestly, I don't think I would have known that. And, you know, I actually grew up in the 80s, so, you know, my bad. Okay. Do you have any favorite subgenres in the synthwave scene?
Ooh, subgenres in synthwave specifically. Well, probably darkwave. That'd be my top choice. Yeah, I'm just gonna stick with that.
Darkwave's cool. Do you know what? You should link up with some of the more rockier style things. I think you could add a real nice contrast to that dark rocky thing. You should. I don't know if you. Well, obviously you have lots of collaborations, but I mean, yeah, I think that would
a million collaborations.
Yeah, I bet your inbox is just like, yeah. We want you to work with us. We want you to work with us. All right. Is there anyone that you would love to work with?
In general or in the scene specifically?
You can go both.
Both? Okay. In the scene specifically, I would love to work with Perturbator. I love his stuff. In general, I think doing a collaboration with Grimes would be super epic.
I think those would both work really well. Okay. Random question. How do you relax?
Ooh, that is a good question. Either binge watching something awesome on Netflix or pole dancing, which isn't relaxing while I'm doing it, but afterwards I feel great.
Can I just ask, I didn't know you were a pole dancer. How much of a workout is pole dancing? Like afterwards, do you feel absolutely knackered? Do you get like sore abs or like a sore butt or whatever? I don't know.
Yes, sore everything. I will be totally knackered, totally bruised. It's like, you know, combination of martial arts and rock climbing. Like that's how tired people get, and that's how hard it can be.
I used to do martial arts and I used to get tired. Do you pole dance often? Is it a regular thing?
It used to be, and then the pandemic kind of screwed up my schedule, but I'm getting back into it now. It's pretty regular. If I'm not going to classes, I have a pole in my garage finally where I can practice.
Cool. All right. Tell me something you love.
Just anything.
Just anything you love. Just if whatever comes to mind. Like, it could be your husband, your cat, your pole. I don't know.
Yeah, my first impulse was to say my 2 cats.
You have 2 cats.
Are
they girls or boys?
One of each, and one is she's almost a little old lady, and the other one is a firecracker youngster, and he drives her crazy.
And what are their names?
Chetney is the girl, and Finn is the boy.
Oh, I love the name Finn. If I have a kid as a boy, I think I might go with Finn. Actually, it's a great name.
It's a great, yeah.
Right. The opposite question is: can you tell me something you hate?
Ooh, what do I hate? I hate people being dicks to one another.
There's a lot of that going on. Yeah.
I just like random, anonymous, internet trolling, even in person, just people being awful to each other. I can't stand it.
You think? Do you think that the synthwave scene is? Do you think it's good for that kind of thing, as in like people are fairly supportive, or do you think there is a negative undertone to the scene?
I think, as with any community, you are going to have lovely people and you are going to have dick people. And I think the people that are asshats are just going to be asshats in their entire life, no matter where they are. If it's a niche forum, if it's in a music scene, if it's, to their coworkers, that's just usually how they are. So I think synthwave is no different from any other community. It's got good and bad.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, people go through different stages and stuff, so sometimes they're not in a place and they lash out, and that could last for a week, a month, 3 months, a year, 2 years, so it takes, and they can be very toxic during that period. It doesn't mean they'll always be toxic, but yeah, you get that obviously in the synthwave scene as well. Okay, do you have a hero?
Do I have a hero? It's a great question.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, it's a very hard one. It's funny, I don't listen to a lot of Grimes's music. However, the fact that she is sort of a pioneer and role model to female producers, because we're so marginalized, and the fact that she's made it so far and is as successful as she is by sticking with it and doing things herself, even when there was a ton of pushback, I think is really admirable.
Why do you think there are less female producers? Because I think that the scene is actually crying out for more female producers. I think it really, really wants it and needs it as well.
I think that's the case with the entire music industry. It's film music too. I researched this a bunch. I honestly can't name the last movie that I watched that had a female composer. There's the gender gap in game audio, film audio, music industry in general is pretty intense.
The same as the gender gap in the gender gap that seems to be everywhere in all kinds of industries and stuff like that, which is weird, because if honestly my preference, like when I listen to sort of a male and a female singer, my preference is for a female singer. Honestly, I tend to prefer female singers. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but I really like the female voice, and it seems to me like that's an industry where there shouldn't really, I can't see any valid reason for a divide.
Yeah, so I mean, there are plenty of female vocalists. That's not hard to find. But female producers and audio engineers, that's where it gets that's where it dwindles significantly. And I think, I mean, it's a very complicated issue with not one answer, but I think sort of a combination of longstanding bias in gender roles, traditional value kind of things that date way back. Um, Obviously, more women are mothers and don't focus on the career side of things as much. It's changing, but that again is sort of a yonder days traditional structure. And the fact that since there aren't as many women doing this, there are not as many female role models for younger girls and women who want to do that, that may feel like they need, more of a mentorship. Or it's basically like you can't visualize what you can be when you're not seeing it represented.
So one last thing. So do you think like the traditional sort of male geeky, the guy who can always do the sort of techie stuff role needs to be challenged? And if there are any female artists out there looking for a role model, what message would you like to send them?
What was the first part of that question? I was thinking about the
sorry, it's two questions in one. So I was just saying, like, I was saying, like, the traditional view that the man, the IT sort of the geeky, nerdy sort of guy who's, very mathematical, scientifically inclined. I think that role needs to be challenged, to say that, obviously women can do that and as well, if not better. And I think there's a perception that men kind of do that kind of thing. They study that more often, and I think that role needs that perception needs to be challenged, and we need to encourage females to get involved in those kind of studies as well. But then also, if there are women out there who are aspiring to be sound engineers, vocalists, artists, producers, what message would you like to send them?
Yes, so to speak to the first part of that, absolutely. And I think, challenge, like I said, and change is very slow. But as long as there is awareness and, yeah, I mean, I don't want to step on any toes, but clearly, please hire the people that are right for the job, regardless of gender, because that makes the most sense. But I would encourage women who are interested in these things to pursue them. There is no reason not to. There really isn't. If if it's what you need to do, it's what you need to do, and nothing should stand in your way.
Okay, and would you like to send a message out to any female artists out there who feel a bit intimidated, maybe like, oh, this is, there's so many men out there, it's really dominated, why would anyone listen to me, kind of thing?
Well, I'd say that it encompasses this message encompasses all indie artists or artists who feel like they're not breaking through. You just have to do you. You have to find your own sound. You have to be really good at what you do, and people will like you for that. Absolutely. Regardless if you're a woman, identifying as a woman, a man, just full gender representation spectrum. Just do you. People will find you for that thing. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. Just be really good at your craft. Be nice, be open, be
friendly, be honest.
Yes, don't be a troll.
Next question, total change of tact.
Yeah.
Tell me one thing that's on your bucket list.
Oh, okay. One thing on my bucket list. I always kind of have this massive running tally in my head, but now ask the question point blank. I was like, okay, here's one. I would love to appear in a blockbuster film in a cameo role. So like if characters go into some jazz club or something, or like a cyberpunk lounge, I am, you know, the live
How
act
cool would
that's
that
on
be?
stage. That would be amazing. That's on my bucket list.
Is there any like, do you have any like do you have a distinct vision of that, like any particular actors that you want in that scene? Like, is it very, can you see it in color, or I don't know?
I hadn't thought that far ahead. But basically, I don't know if you've seen the film from the 90s called Dark City with Jennifer Connelly and Rufus Sewell.
I don't
It's
think I
very
have,
cool.
which is really unfortunate for this interview, but there you go. Sorry.
Anyway, okay, so Jennifer Connelly, I guess her career is singing in the movie, but anyway, there's a scene where, you know, people are walking into this lounge, this club, and she's on stage in a sequin dress, and she does like a full jazzy lounge number on stage. And then, you know, the movie progresses. But I would love to be in that spot where there's a little bit of a focus on the performer. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean something for the film, but just to be on stage as the live act, whether it's me or some fictional band that I'm a part of, I think that would be amazing.
Cool, cool. All right. Tell me, if you're in your car and you're driving along in Seattle, which is where you live, and it's probably raining, what do you what do you listen to?
I either listen to a Scary Stories podcast that I really love, or I will be likely listening to Infected Mushroom, Massive Attack, IMX, or Beck.
I've never heard of Infected Mushroom, but that is one really cool name. So I'm going to go and check those out afterwards. I've never heard of Infected Mushroom.
They are an incredible duo from Israel, and their electronica is insane. Like, it's just so good.
I saw a tweet or something or other, I can't remember what social media it was actually, where they were talking about, if you don't listen to synthwave, what metal or rock do you listen to? And you commented, and you put on some tracks, and I listened to them on Spotify, and I liked every single one of them. I was like, whoa, yes, thank you, Megan. These are wicked.
I don't even remember what I suggested.
No, I actually can't remember now. I mean, it was 6 months ago, but I just remember I put them on my Spotify playlist, like in my metal and rock Spotify playlist, and I listened to them. I was like, yes, 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 and yes. Well done, Megan. Okay. All right. Last couple of questions. We're nearly done. Tell me one good thing about the scene, in your opinion.
I would say that the fans are genuine. All the synthwave heads that I have met have been really great people. They're just so guileless, you know, like if they love an artist, they really love an artist, and they will buy everything that artist puts out. So the support as an artist from the fans has been really, really nice.
Cool. And if there was one thing that was not quite as good, that you could improve, that you don't necessarily love, what would that be?
In the scene in particular, I find this the sort of like angst surrounding separating genres really fatiguing. Or like,
and pointless because they're all really close together. Well, I mean, they're not all really close together. You can like distinctly separate a few. Like, I mean, synth pop and horror wave, for example,
Sure,
are quite different. But there's not that much difference between synth wave, synth pop, you know, blah blah blah. It gets a bit.
I think it's more the arguing of if something is synthwave or not. Like, it doesn't matter. You should enjoy it if you enjoy it. Like, what? Doesn't matter.
I mean, ultimately, I mean, the term synthwave means 80s inspired, right? But if you if you like, I mean, that's a very broad term. I mean, like you said, if you like it,
Yep.
you like it. Who cares? Who
Right.
cares?
Yep.
Literally. Who cares?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Last question. Would you like to do any shouts out? Have you got any new information, new releases? What's happening with you? Just tell us what's going on.
Sure. Yes, lots of blah blah blahs. I'm always working on 20 to 100 blah blah blahs. Yeah, so I'm steadily working on both the sequel to River City Girls, which was arguably one of my most famous soundtracks yet. That's how a lot of people find me. So I've been steadily working on River City Girls 2, River City Girls 0, which is sort of a spin-off game that they're doing. That's coming early next year. And what else am I doing? I just got put on a very, very famous game franchise that I can't talk about, but keep your eyes open for that. Just released the Atari soundtrack, so that's pretty cool if you want to jam out to some bumping electronica.
Absolutely. Got
Yeah,
any collaborations?
there's a lot.
Got any collaborations?
Yes, I don't know if I'm allowed to say with whom yet.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it there. All right, listen, Megan, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. It was absolutely lovely speaking to you, an absolute pleasure. And hopefully at some point in the future, we can do it again.
Yes, it was so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem.